My name is Mary. I live in Houston, Texas, and I am 64 years old. Before I continue, I want to welcome everyone watching me right now. Please make sure you subscribe, like this video, and click the notification button so you don't miss more of my upcoming interesting stories. And please, I want to know, tell me in the comments from which part of the country you are watching this story from. Now, let me take you straight to the moment that shattered my life. It was late at night. I was 7 months pregnant, tired but hopeful, waiting to welcome my first child into the world. My husband had traveled out of town for work, and the house was too quiet. I trusted my elder brother-in-law to check in on me, because he had promised my husband he would help me while he was away. But that night, the man I respected as an elder, the man I believed to be family, turned into a monster before my eyes. He forced his way into my room, his face dark, his eyes burning with something I could not understand. And then he whispered the words that froze my heart forever. "This baby should not live. It will ruin everything." Before I could scream, before I could beg, he attacked me with a rage I had never seen. He didn't care that I was pregnant, he didn't care that I was weak. He wanted to destroy me, to kill the life inside of me. I struggled, I cried. I fought with all the strength a mother could gather, but it wasn't enough. His violence broke me and my world went black. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. My body was aching, my mind was confused, and then the doctor walked in. His face was pale. He didn't need to say much, because I already felt the emptiness inside me. My baby, my sweet unborn child, was gone. Do you know the kind of silence that feels heavier than thunder? That was the silence in the room. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I wanted to die with my baby, but my body refused to give up. My husband came rushing back, but when he looked into my eyes, he already knew. From that moment, I was no longer the same woman. And from that moment, my brother-in-law was no longer family. He was the devil who stole my child. But before I tell you how I rose from that pain, how I faced betrayal, and how this story truly began, let me take you back to where it all started. To the days before the nightmare, when I still believed in family, in love, and in safety. I was a young bride, newly married, full of hope. My husband, John, was the love of my life. He was hardworking, gentle, and full of dreams. We had just bought our first little house, a place with peeling paint and creaking floors, but to me it felt like a palace. Every night we talked about our future, about children, about building a legacy. But behind the smiles there was one shadow, his elder brother, Richard. Richard was respected in the family, the one everyone looked up to. He carried himself like a leader, and his words always sounded final. At first, I admired him. He seemed protective of us, especially me, calling me little sister. But sometimes, I caught something in his eyes that made me uncomfortable. A look that lingered too long. A smile that didn't feel like family. I ignored it. I told myself I was imagining things. After all, he was married with 2 kids of his own. Why would I think otherwise? The first real sign came one evening when John wasn't home. Richard came over to check on me. I offered him tea, and we sat in the living room. His eyes wandered around the house until they finally settled on me. Then, in a low voice, he said, "You know, Mary, some women marry men who can't truly protect them. Some women need someone stronger by their side." I froze. My heart started racing. I laughed it off nervously and quickly changed the topic. But inside, I knew what he meant. From that day, I began to avoid him. But it was never enough. He always found a way back into my space. At family gatherings, his hand would brush against mine too long. He would whisper things I pretended not to hear. I told John once, but he laughed and said, "Oh, Mary, you worry too much. Richard is just joking." I wished I could believe that. Time passed, and I became pregnant. It was the happiest news of my life. Everyone celebrated, even Richard. He brought gifts and spoke kind words, but his eyes told another story. Sometimes I caught him staring at my stomach with a strange, cold expression. One afternoon, he pulled me aside when no one was watching and said, "This baby will change everything in this family. You don't know what you're carrying, Mary. Be careful." I didn't understand his words then, but they haunted me. And then came that night, the night I told you about at the beginning. The night when his jealousy, his hatred, his wickedness exploded and I lost everything. But my story didn't end there. Because what came after was worse. Much worse. The hospital released me with an empty womb and a broken spirit. I wanted to believe it was over, that I would never have to face Richard again. But he was not finished with me. He had more plans, more darkness waiting in his heart. And that is where the nightmare truly began. I came home from the hospital broken. My heart shattered into a million pieces. My baby was gone. My womb felt empty, and my soul felt colder than winter. My husband, John, tried to comfort me, but I could see he was drowning in his own grief too. He held me at night, but I often woke up to find him staring at the ceiling, tears silently falling. We never spoke much about what Richard had done. At first, John refused to believe it. "Mary," he whispered one night, his voice shaking. "Are you sure? Are you certain it was Richard? Maybe you just fell. Maybe it wasn't as you think." My heart burned with anger. How could he doubt me? I looked into his eyes, searching for strength, but all I saw was fear. Fear of facing the truth about his own brother. "John," I said firmly, "I know what happened. I know who did it. Your brother killed our baby." But instead of standing with me, he turned away. His silence told me everything. He was too afraid to confront Richard. The days turned into weeks. Everyone in the family whispered about my miscarriage, but no one spoke about the truth. Richard visited the house often, pretending to be concerned, pretending to be a caring brother-in-law. Every time he walked in, my skin crawled. I wanted to scream, to tell the whole family what he had done, but my husband begged me not to. "Mary, please," John said, holding my hands tightly. "We can't tear this family apart. Not now. Let's heal quietly." Heal quietly? How does a mother heal from losing her child to evil? I swallowed my pain because I thought maybe time would bury it. But I was wrong. One afternoon, when John was at work, Richard came to the house again. I didn't want to let him in, but he forced his way inside. He stood in the living room, his eyes cold as stone. "You think you can expose me?" he sneered. "You think anyone will believe you over me? Mary, you're weak. And your husband. He will never choose you over his own blood. Remember that." I trembled. I wanted to grab something and hit him, but fear paralyzed me. He leaned close, so close I could feel his breath on my skin. "You couldn't even protect your baby," he whispered. "What makes you think you can protect yourself?" Then as quickly as he came, he left. But those words pierced my soul like knives. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying his voice in my head, over and over again. For a while, I thought that was the end of it, that his threat was just to scare me. I didn't realize he was already planning his next move. Weeks later, I found out I was pregnant again. At first, I was afraid to tell anyone, not even John. I was terrified that Richard would find out. But eventually John noticed. He smiled, hugged me, and promised this time would be different. "This baby will live, Mary," he said, kissing my forehead. "I won't let anything happen." I wanted to believe him. I prayed day and night, asking God to protect my child. For a short time I felt a flicker of happiness return. But happiness never stays long when evil is watching. One evening as I was coming back from the grocery store, I noticed a car following me slowly. My heart pounded. I quickened my steps, holding my belly protectively. When I looked back, I saw him, Richard, sitting in the car, his eyes locked on me, his lips curved into a cold smile. Fear froze me, but I kept walking fast until I reached the house. I locked the door behind me, my hands shaking uncontrollably. That night, I didn't tell John what I saw. I didn't want him to worry, but I should have told him. Because what happened the very next day would shake me in a way I never thought possible. The next morning, I woke up with a strange heaviness in my chest. Something in my spirit warned me that danger was close. I moved slowly around the house, touching my belly every now and then, whispering to the little life inside me, "Don't worry, baby. Mama will keep you safe this time." John left early for work, kissing me goodbye. "Lock the doors, Mary," he said. "And don't open for anyone until I'm back." I nodded, but deep inside, I feared it was already too late. Around noon, I was washing dishes when I heard a knock at the door. My heart skipped. I peeped through the curtain. It was Richard. Every nerve in my body screamed no. I whispered to myself, Don't open the door. Don't. But Richard's voice came through deep and commanding. Mary, open the door. I know you're in there. Don't make me cause a scene. My hands trembled. I stayed silent, hoping he would leave. But he didn't. Instead, he started banging harder. Open this door, or I'll tell the neighbors things about you they'll never forget. I froze. He was threatening my name, my dignity. Fear and shame clouded my judgment. Slowly, against every instinct, I unlocked the door. The moment I opened it, Richard shoved his way inside. His eyes darted to my stomach immediately. That same cruel smirk spread across his face. So it's true, he said coldly. You're carrying another one. I stepped back, holding my belly with both hands. Stay away from me, Richard, I whispered. I'll scream if you touch me. He laughed, a sound that chilled me to the bone. Scream? And who will believe you, Mary? Everyone thinks you lost your mind after the first baby. Even your husband doubts you. No one will ever believe your words against mine. Tears welled in my eyes. Why are you doing this? What did I ever do to you? He leaned closer, his face inches from mine. Because you don't deserve happiness. Because your child will take away what belongs to me. This family, this legacy, it should all be mine. And I will not let your children stand in my way. I gasped. His words revealed more than I had ever known. This wasn't just about me. This was about power, inheritance, and greed. I tried to run toward the phone to call John, but Richard grabbed my arm so tightly I screamed in pain. You will not have this baby, he growled. I struggled, pushing against him with all my strength. Leave me alone. Suddenly, a loud knock came at the door. Both of us froze. Richard's grip loosened. Mary. It's the neighbor. Are you all right? I heard shouting. My heart leaped with hope. Richard's eyes darted toward the door, then back at me. His face twisted with rage. He whispered harshly, This isn't over. Remember that. He released me, stormed out the back door, and disappeared before the neighbor came in. I collapsed on the floor, clutching my belly, sobbing uncontrollably. The neighbor helped me up, worried, but I lied. I said I just slipped and fell. I was too afraid to speak the truth. That night, when John returned, I finally told him what happened. I begged him to believe me. I told him Richard was dangerous, that he wanted to kill our baby. John sat in silence for a long time, his face pale. Finally, he whispered, Mary, I believe you. But what can we do? He's my brother. If we tell the family, they'll never believe us. They'll say you're blaming him again. Then we leave, I said firmly. We move away, John. Before it's too late. But John shook his head. It's not that easy. We don't have enough money. And if we run, Richard will follow us anyway. We need another plan. I wanted to argue, but before I could, the phone rang. John picked it up, his face turning pale as he listened. When he hung up, his hands were shaking. That was Richard, he said quietly. My heart sank. What did he say? John swallowed hard, his eyes dark with fear. He said he's coming back tomorrow. And this time, he won't leave until he gets what he wants. That night, after John told me Richard had called, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding like a drum. My hand never left my belly. I whispered prayers over and over again. God, please protect this child. Don't let Richard win again. John tried to reassure me. Don't worry, Mary. I'll be here tomorrow. I won't let him touch you. I'll protect you. But his voice lacked confidence. I could see the fear in his eyes. John was caught in the middle, torn between the love for his wife and child, and the loyalty he felt for his brother. The next morning came too fast. Every sound outside made me jump. Every knock on the door made my heart stop. At noon, there was a loud banging on the door. My blood ran cold. John rushed to the window and cursed under his breath. It's him. Richard's voice thundered from outside. Open this door, John. Don't make me break it down. John hesitated. His hands were trembling as he turned to me. Stay in the bedroom. Lock the door. Don't come out, no matter what happens. I shook my head in fear. No, Jon. Don't face him alone. He's dangerous. But before I could say more, the door flew open. Richard stormed inside, his presence filling the room like a dark storm. John stepped in front of me. "Richard, leave. You're not welcome here anymore." Richard sneered. "Oh, little brother. So now you choose her over me? You forget who helped you all these years? Who carried this family on his back? And now because of her you dare to push me away?" John's voice shook, but he stood his ground. "She's my wife. That baby is my child. If you come near her again, you'll regret it." For a moment, silence filled the room. Richard's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. Then, without warning, he lunged at John. The two brothers clashed violently. Furniture toppled, dishes shattered. I screamed from the hallway, clutching my belly, terrified of losing another child in the chaos. "Stop it. Please stop," I cried, but they didn't hear me. Richard was stronger, bigger, fueled by rage. He pinned John to the wall, his fist raised high. "You're weak, John. Always have been. This family belongs to me." Before he could strike, John managed to push him back, gasping for breath. "If you touch her again, Richard, I swear I'll kill you." Richard laughed, a dark, hollow laugh. Then his eyes turned to me, standing frozen near the bedroom door. His smirk returned. "Maybe I don't need to kill you, John. Maybe I just need to finish what I started with her." I gasped, stepping back into the bedroom. My legs shook violently. I tried to shut the door, but Richard's hand caught it just in time. His eyes bored into mine, cold and merciless. "Mary," he whispered. "You won't keep this baby either." I screamed. And at that exact moment, the front door burst open. It was Richard's wife. She stood there, her face pale, her eyes wide. She stood there, her face pale, her eyes wide in shock as she took in the scene. Her husband's violence, my tears, and John's desperate struggle. "Richard," she shouted. "What are you doing?" The entire house went silent. For the first time, Richard looked shaken. And I realized, his wife had finally seen the monster I had been fighting all along. Richard's wife, Anna, stood frozen in the doorway. Her hands trembled as she clutched her purse, her eyes darting between me, John, and Richard. For a moment no one moved. The silence was so heavy, I could hear my own heartbeat. "Richard," Anna finally whispered, her voice cracking. What are you doing here? What have you done?" Richard's face hardened. He tried to straighten himself, brushing invisible dust from his shirt as though nothing had happened. "Go home, Anna. This is family business." "Family business?" she snapped, her eyes flashing. "You're attacking your own brother? Terrifying his wife? And don't you dare tell me it's nothing." I heard her scream. Her words hit the air like a thunderclap. John stepped toward her quickly, his face desperate. "Anna, please, you don't understand. He's been threatening Mary. He wants to hurt her. He already—" "Shut up, John," Richard barked, cutting him off. His eyes were blazing now, veins popping in his neck. "Don't you dare poison her against me." But it was too late. Anna's gaze shifted to me, her eyes full of questions. "Mary, is this true? Is he the reason you lost the baby before?" The question broke something inside me. Tears streamed down my face, and I nodded slowly. Yes, it was him. He wanted the baby gone. He forced me. My voice cracked before I could finish. Anna staggered back like she had been struck. She shook her head violently, refusing to believe. No, not Richard. He's my husband. He would never." Richard's hand shot out, gripping her arm tightly. "Enough, Anna. Don't listen to her lies." But Anna's eyes filled with horror as she looked into his face. Maybe for the first time, she saw what I had always seen. The monster beneath the mask. "Richard," she whispered. "My God, it's true, isn't it? You killed their baby." Richard's face twisted with rage. "Shut your mouth, woman," he roared, shaking her so hard I thought she might fall. John jumped forward, pulling Anna away from his brother. "Don't touch her," he shouted. "You've done enough damage." The room erupted into chaos. Anna sobbing, John shouting, me crying out in fear. And Richard, standing in the middle, his eyes wild, like an animal cornered. Then Anna said something that made the room fall silent again. "You think you can destroy their family, Richard? You think you're the only one with secrets?" Her voice trembled, but her words were sharp as knives. "Tell them the truth. Tell them why you really hate that baby. Or should I do it for you? Richard froze. His eyes darted to her, filled with sudden panic. Anna, don't you dare. But Anna stepped forward, her tears mixing with fury. No. They deserve to know. They deserve to hear what you've been hiding all these years. My heart stopped. I looked at John, then back at Anna. What truth? I whispered. Anna's lips trembled. She looked straight at me, then at John, and finally back at Richard, whose face was now pale as death. The truth, she said, her voice breaking, is that this isn't just about jealousy. This is about blood. Richard doesn't want your baby born, because if it lives, it will expose everything. Richard lunged forward, his hand clamping over her mouth before she could speak another word. Not another syllable, he roared. But it was too late. The secret was out in the open, hanging heavy in the air. And I knew deep in my soul that my life, and the life of my unborn child, was about to change forever. Richard's hand was still clamped tightly over Anna's mouth. Her muffled cries filled the room, but her eyes burned with determination. John rushed forward, grabbing Richard by the shoulders. Let her go, he shouted. With a sudden shove, John managed to free Anna from his brother's grip. She stumbled into my arms, shaking violently, her breath ragged. I held her tightly, feeling her tears soak through my dress. Richard's face twisted with fury. Anna, if you say one more word, I swear you'll regret it. But Anna stepped back, her chin trembling yet lifted with courage. No, Richard. I've kept your secret long enough. I can't let another innocent child die because of you. My heart pounded as I clutched my stomach. Please, Anna, I begged, tell me. What is going on? Why is he doing this to me? Anna's eyes filled with sorrow as she looked at me. Mary, Richard doesn't just want to destroy your baby. He's afraid of what your baby's bloodline will prove. John's brows furrowed. What are you talking about? Bloodline? Anna, speak clearly. Anna took a shaky breath. Her voice dropped, but every word hit me like a hammer. Richard is not just your brother, John. He's your half-brother. And his greatest fear is that if your child is born, the truth about your father's will, the inheritance, the family name, everything, will come to light. He knows your child will take the place he's been claiming as his own. The room went silent. John's eyes widened in shock. What are you saying, Anna? Richard's face turned red with rage. You fool. Don't listen to her. She doesn't know what she's talking about. But Anna stood firm, her tears flowing freely. I do know, Richard. I've seen the documents. I've read your father's will. Everything was left to John and his bloodline. Not you. You've been living a lie, clinging to power that was never yours. And the moment Mary gives birth, the truth will be undeniable. I gasped, covering my mouth. Suddenly, everything made sense. Richard's strange stares, his bitterness, his hatred toward my unborn children. He wasn't just cruel. He was desperate. Desperate to protect the lie he had built his entire life upon. John staggered back, shaking his head. No, this can't be true. Richard stepped forward, his voice thundering. Don't you see, John? She's trying to destroy us. That child will ruin everything we've built. It will strip me of everything I deserve. John's eyes filled with fury as he turned to his brother. Everything you deserve? You killed my first child. You destroyed my wife's life. And now you admit it's all because of greed. Richard's lips curled into a snarl. I did what I had to do. And I'll do it again if I must. I gasped, clutching my belly tighter. His words were not a threat. They were a promise. Before John could respond, Richard lunged at him, fists flying. The two brothers crashed into the table, splintering it in half. Anna screamed, covering her face, while I backed into the corner. My heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. I cried out, "Stop. Please stop. You'll kill each other." But they didn't hear me. The fight was brutal. Punches, kicks, grunts of pain echoing through the room. Then suddenly, Richard grabbed a heavy glass vase from the shelf and raised it high above John's head.
Iskramat? No.
But before I could move, the vase came crashing down. There was a sickening crack. And John collapsed to the floor, blood pooling around his head. The room went still. My scream tore through the silence. Anna gasped, dropping to her knees. And Richard stood over his brother, chest heaving, the broken vase still in his hand. His eyes locked on me, filled with something even darker than before. "You see, Mary," he said coldly, "this is what happens when anyone stands in my way. Now it's just you and me. And that child will not live." John lay on the floor, blood trickling from his head. My heart stopped. I dropped to my knees beside him, shaking him, calling his name. "John. John, please wake up. Don't leave me, not now." But he didn't move. His eyes stayed closed, his body limp. Tears blurred my vision. My hands pressed against his wound, desperate to stop the bleeding. Anna was beside me, sobbing uncontrollably, her hands trembling as she tried to help. Behind us, Richard stood tall, the shattered vase still clutched in his hand. His chest rose and fell with each heavy breath. His eyes were locked on me, dark and merciless. "You see what you made me do," he said coldly. "If he dies, it's your fault, Mary. All of this is because you couldn't keep quiet." Rage burned inside me. I looked up at him, tears streaming down my face. "You're a monster, Richard. You killed my baby, and now you've killed your own brother." But Richard only smirked. "Better him than me. Better that child never be born than for me to lose everything." Anna stood up suddenly, her body shaking with anger. "Richard, stop this madness. You've gone too far." He turned on her, his voice booming. "Too far? No, Anna. I've only done what I had to. This family belongs to me. Everything our father built, it was supposed to be mine. And I won't let anyone take it away." "Your father left it all to John," Anna cried. "You've been living a lie, and you know it." Richard's eyes blazed. He raised his hand as if to strike her, but I screamed, "Don't you touch her." For a moment he froze, his gaze snapping back to me. His lips curled into a cruel smile. "You're right, Mary. She's not the problem. You are. You and that baby." He stepped closer. My body tensed. I wanted to run, but my legs refused to move. I wrapped my arms around my stomach protectively, my whole body trembling. Then suddenly John groaned. My eyes widened. He was alive. "Mary." His weak voice rasped, barely audible. Relief flooded me, but it was short-lived. Richard snarled, dropping the broken vase and grabbing a kitchen knife from the counter. "If he won't die," Richard hissed, "then I'll finish what I started with you. That baby won't live another day." He raised the knife, stepping toward me. My scream ripped through the house. And at that exact moment, the front door slammed open. A police officer stormed inside, gun drawn, shouting, "Drop the weapon." Richard froze, the knife hovering in the air. His eyes flickered with rage and fear. And I realized someone had called for help. But who? The officer's voice thundered through the house. "Drop the knife now or I'll shoot." Richard's grip on the blade tightened. His chest rose and fell as he looked from me to the officer, his eyes wild, his face twisted with fury. For a moment, I thought he might obey, but then his lips curled into a smirk. "You think you can stop me?" he sneered. "This isn't over." "Not for her, not for that child." The officer stepped forward cautiously, his gun steady. "Put it down, sir. Right now." My heart pounded. I pressed my hands against John's chest, whispering prayers as his breath came in shallow gasps. Anna stood frozen beside me, her eyes darting between Richard and the officer, her whole body trembling. And then I heard it, the shaky but determined voice of the neighbor, Mrs. Wilson, from behind the officer. "That's him. That's the man who's been hurting them." I heard the screaming and I called for help. Relief washed over me. It was her. The same neighbor who had knocked on my door before. She had been watching, listening, and this time she had saved us. But Richard's rage boiled over. He roared like a beast, raising the knife high above his head. The officer shouted, "Drop it." Time slowed. I held my breath. My baby kicked inside me as though sensing the danger. And then Richard lunged. I screamed. A deafening gunshot echoed through the house. The knife clattered to the floor. Richard staggered, his face twisted in shock. For a moment it looked like he might collapse, but instead, he turned his wild eyes on me, clutching his side where blood seeped through his shirt. "This isn't the end, Mary," he growled, his voice low and chilling. "Even if it kills me, I'll make sure that child never sees the light of day." Then he fell to the floor motionless. Anna gasped. Mrs. Wilson screamed. The officer rushed forward, kicking the knife away and checking Richard's pulse. "He's alive," the officer muttered. "We need an ambulance now." 2 more officers stormed in, securing the scene. Paramedics followed close behind. The living room filled with chaos, sirens wailing outside, people shouting orders, the sound of Richard being strapped to a stretcher. But my eyes never left John. His face was pale, his body weak. When the paramedics tried to help him, he groaned, barely able to speak. "Mary," he whispered, his hand searching for mine. I grabbed it, holding tight, tears streaming down my face. "I'm here, John. Please don't leave me. Please, we need you." But his grip was faint, slipping away. And then the medic looked up at me, his expression grim. "Ma'am, his condition is critical. If we don't get him to the hospital right now, he won't make it." My heart dropped. I looked from John, my husband, the father of my unborn child, to Richard, being wheeled out under police guard, still alive despite all his evil. And in that moment, I realized I could lose everything. The ambulance sirens wailed as we sped through the streets. I sat beside John, clutching his hand as the paramedics worked frantically to stabilize him. His breathing was shallow, his face pale, his blood soaking through the bandages they had wrapped around his head. "Stay with me, John," I whispered, tears streaming down my cheeks. "Please don't leave me. Not now. Not after everything." The paramedic gave me a quick, sympathetic look. "Ma'am, keep talking to him. He needs to hear your voice." So I did. I told him about the first time we met, about how nervous he had been on our wedding day, about how he had laughed when I first told him I was pregnant. I clung to every memory, pouring them into his ears, praying they would anchor him to life. When we arrived at the hospital, everything blurred into chaos. Nurses and doctors rushed John into the emergency room, shouting instructions, wheeling machines. One doctor stopped me at the door. "I'm sorry, Mom. You can't come in. We'll do everything we can, but his condition is critical." The doors slammed shut in my face. I collapsed into a chair, my hands trembling, my chest tight with fear. Anna sat beside me, holding my hand, whispering prayers under her breath. Hours crawled by. Every minute felt like an eternity. Finally, the doctor returned, his face grave. "He made it through surgery," he said, "but he's not out of danger yet. The next 24 hours will decide everything." Relief and fear tangled inside me. I thanked the doctor, but deep down, I knew the battle was far from over. Meanwhile, down another hall, Richard was being treated under heavy police guard. The news reached me when I overheard 2 officers speaking. "He's lucky to be alive after taking that bullet," one muttered. "Lucky," the other scoffed. "He's a devil. Did you hear what he tried to do? If I were that woman, I'd pray he never wakes up." My blood ran cold. Richard was alive. And if he was alive, that meant the nightmare wasn't over. The next morning, while I sat by John's bedside, holding his limp hand, a nurse rushed in with a worried look. "Ma'am," she said, lowering her voice. "You need to know? Richard escaped from police custody." My heart stopped. "What?" I whispered, my voice breaking. She nodded nervously. "They don't know how, but he overpowered the guard. He's gone." The room spun around me. I clutched my stomach, feeling my baby kick as though sensing my terror. John lay helpless in the bed. I was alone, vulnerable. And Richard was free. And I knew with a certainty that chilled my soul, he was coming for me. The nurse's words echoed in my ears like a death sentence. "Richard escaped, he's gone." My legs went weak, and I nearly collapsed. Anna caught me, her own face pale with fear. "Mary," she whispered, "we need to get you somewhere safe. If he comes here." But I shook my head violently. "I can't leave John. Not like this. He needs me." John lay motionless in the hospital bed, machines beeping steadily beside him. His hand was warm but limp in mine. I refused to abandon him, even if it meant risking my life. Anna pressed her lips together, her eyes filled with tears. "Then at least let me call the police. They need to put protection on this room." I nodded weakly. It was all we could do. Within the hour, 2 officers were stationed outside John's room. They assured me everything would be fine, but I saw the unease in their eyes. They knew what Richard was capable of. That night, the hospital halls were quiet, almost eerily so. Anna had gone home to check on the children, leaving me alone with John. I sat by his side, stroking his hand, whispering prayers for his recovery. Then I heard it. A soft scrape, like footsteps dragging along the tiled floor. I froze. My heart thundered in my chest. Slowly, I stood and moved to the door. The officers were still there, alert, talking quietly. For a moment, I let out a shaky breath, thinking it must have been my imagination. But then, the lights flickered, and a shadow moved across the hallway wall. I gasped and backed away, my hand flying to my stomach. My baby kicked again, as if warning me. The officers jumped to their feet, hands on their guns. "Who's there?" one shouted. No answer. Just silence. Then, from somewhere down the hall, a low, chilling laugh echoed. The officers charged forward, disappearing around the corner. Their voices rang out, "Stop. Freeze," followed by the sound of running footsteps. And then 2 gunshots cracked through the night. I screamed, rushing to the door. The hallway was empty. Both officers were gone. And then, just as the silence grew unbearable, I saw it. Written in blood-red letters across the white hospital wall were the words, "The baby dies tonight." My blood turned cold. My knees buckled, and I leaned against the doorframe for support. Fear coiled in my chest like a snake. I glanced back at John, still unconscious, helpless. I knew then that I had to protect both him and our unborn child. I couldn't let Richard win. Suddenly, a nurse appeared at the far end of the hall. Her face pale, her voice trembling. "Ma'am, you need to lock the door. Now. Where are the officers?" I whispered, my throat tight. Her eyes darted nervously toward the shadowy corridor. "They're down. I think he's still here." Panic surged through me. The nurse helped me close the heavy hospital door and shoved a cabinet against it. We dimmed the lights in the room, hoping the darkness would shield us. Inside, the beeping machines were the only sounds breaking the silence. I clutched John's hand with one arm and held my swollen belly with the other. My heart raced so hard it hurt. Then a knock. Gentle. Almost mocking. "Mary." Richard's voice slithered through the door, low and cold. "You can't hide forever. That baby doesn't deserve to live. You know it. I'm only doing what must be done." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "Leave us alone, Richard. Haven't you done enough?" He chuckled darkly. "Not yet. Not until you've lost everything." The nurse pressed her hand to her mouth, stifling a sob. I grabbed her arm, whispering, "Call security. Call anyone." But before she could move, the door handle rattled violently. Richard was trying to force his way in. The cabinet shuddered, the metal groaning as he slammed his weight against the door. The machines around John beeped louder, as though the chaos was pulling him back toward consciousness. "Mary," John's voice cracked, faint but real. His eyes fluttered open just barely. Hope flared in me, but fear too. If Richard broke through now, John wouldn't stand a chance. The door banged harder. The cabinet scraped across the floor. Richard's growl grew louder. And then silence. I held my breath. The nurse froze. Had he gone? Suddenly, the hospital window shattered inward, shards of glass raining across the room. And there he was. Richard climbed through the broken window, his eyes blazing with madness, a knife gleaming in his hand. He stepped toward me, his lips curling into a smile. "I told you, Mary. Tonight it all ends." Now let's return to that moment. The broken glass, the knife, and Richard's chilling smile. The sound of the window shattering still rang in my ears as Richard stepped inside, crunching over broken shards. His eyes burned with hatred, his knife glinting in the pale hospital light. "Richard, please," I begged, pressing my back against the wall, shielding my stomach with trembling hands. "Don't do this. You've already taken so much from me. Please just stop." But he only laughed. A cruel, hollow sound. "Stop? No, Mary. I told you from the beginning, this ends with your baby gone. It's the only way I win." John stirred weakly on the bed, his lips parting. Richard." His voice was faint, but his eyes flickered with fury. "Leave her alone." Richard sneered, stepping closer. "Still trying to play the hero, brother? Look at you. You can't even stand. You couldn't protect her then, and you can't protect her now. My heart raced. The nurse trembled beside me, frozen with fear. I searched the room desperately for anything, that could be used as a weapon. Richard raised the knife, pointing it at my belly. Say goodbye, Mary. I screamed. In that split second, John mustered every ounce of strength he had left. With a groan of pain, he grabbed the four-stand beside his bed and swung it wildly. The metal pole clattered against Richard's arm, knocking the knife from his hand. The blade skidded across the floor. Run, Mary, John gasped. But Richard recovered quickly, rage flashing in his eyes. He lunged for the knife again. I darted forward, kicking it away before he could grab it. The blade slid under the bed, out of reach. Enraged, Richard turned on me. His hands wrapped around my throat, squeezing tight. I clawed at his fingers, gasping for air, my vision blurring. Richard, stop! The nurse screamed, grabbing a tray of instruments and hurling it at him. The tools clattered against his back, distracting him just enough for me to break free. I stumbled backward, coughing, clutching my neck. My lungs burned, my baby kicked wildly inside me. Richard whirled around, eyes blazing. Stay out of this, he roared at the nurse. She backed away, terrified, but not before grabbing a syringe from the floor. Her hand shook as she held it like a weapon, her knuckles white. Richard advanced on me again, his hands ready to strike. And just as he lunged, the door burst open. A swarm of armed officers stormed in, guns raised, shouting, "Freeze!" Richard froze mid-step, his chest heaving, his face twisted in fury. Slowly, his eyes slid to me, burning with a promise of revenge. And then, with a sudden, reckless move, he snatched the syringe from the nurse's trembling hand and pressed it against his own neck. "If I go down," he hissed, his eyes never leaving mine, "I'll make sure you never forget me." Richard stood frozen, the syringe pressed tight against his own neck, his hand trembling but his eyes burning with madness. "Drop the syringe," one officer shouted, his gun steady. "Don't be stupid, Richard," another barked. "It doesn't have to end like this." Richard's lips curled into a sick smile. "Oh, but it does. You think you've won? You think she's safe just because you're here?" His gaze locked on me, cold and unblinking. "She'll never be safe. Not her, not that baby." My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. I clutched my swollen belly, stepping back until I hit the wall. The nurse stood beside me, pale as a ghost, frozen with fear. John groaned weakly from the bed. "Mary," his voice was faint, but I could hear the desperation in it. "Stay back." Richard's hand shook, but his voice stayed sharp. "If anyone moves, I swear I'll end it. Right here, right now." The officers inched closer, but Richard's eyes darted wildly, his body tense like a trapped animal. I knew then. He wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of losing control. And that made him even more dangerous. "Richard, listen to me," I said softly, my throat raw from where he had choked me. My hands trembled, but I forced myself to meet his gaze. "Hurting me won't give you what you want. It won't bring back your father's approval. It won't make the pain go away." His face twitched just for a moment. I saw something flicker there, doubt, maybe even sorrow, but it vanished quickly, swallowed by rage. "Shut up," he roared, slamming his fist against the wall. The syringe nearly pierced his skin. The officers shouted warnings, their fingers tightening on their triggers. Time felt suspended, the air thick with terror. Then in a split second, Richard shifted. He lunged, not at himself but at me. The syringe turned in his hand, the needle flashing under the harsh hospital light. I screamed, stumbling back, my arms wrapping around my belly as he closed the distance between us. The officers fired. Gunshots exploded in the small room. Richard jerked violently, his eyes wide with shock. The syringe slipped from his grasp, clattering to the floor. He staggered forward, his bloody hand reaching out, toward me. His lips curled into a final, twisted grin. "You can't keep it," he rasped. Then his body collapsed at my feet, lifeless. Silence fell, broken only by the beeping of John's monitor. I stood frozen, staring down at Richard's motionless body, my heart hammering, my baby kicking wildly inside me. And that was when the doctor rushed in, his face pale. "Mrs. Thompson," he said urgently, We have a problem. Your baby's in distress. We need to get you to the delivery room, now. Your baby's in distress. We need to get you to the delivery room, now. My legs nearly gave out. I looked down at my belly, feeling the frantic kicks inside me. My baby was fighting, struggling, crying out for help without words. No, not now, I whispered, tears spilling down my cheeks. Please, not after everything. Please don't take my baby from me. Nurses rushed in, wheeling a stretcher. They helped me onto it, strapping me down gently as they pushed me through the halls. My heart raced with every turn, every flash of fluorescent light above me. As we passed John's room, I reached out desperately. John, please don't leave me. He lay there, pale and unconscious, machines keeping him alive. His fingers twitched weakly, as if reaching for me, but then the doors closed and he was gone from sight. The delivery room was a blur of shouting voices and bright lights. Doctors surrounded me, their faces masked, their eyes sharp with focus. Fetal heart rate dropping. One called, "Prepare for emergency C-section." Another barked. Panic gripped me. My hands shook as I clutched at the sheets. Please save my baby. I don't care about me, just save my child. The doctor leaned close, his voice steady but urgent. We'll do everything we can, Mrs. Thompson. But you need to be strong. Right now it's a fight for both of you. I nodded through sobs, squeezing my eyes shut. My whole body trembled as I felt the cold sting of anesthesia and the sterile air filling the room. In the distance I could still hear echoes of Richard's voice, his hateful words haunting me. The baby dies tonight. I shook my head violently, whispering through clenched teeth. No, not tonight. Not ever. You won't win, Richard. Not over me. Not over my child. The doctors worked quickly, their hands moving with precision. I felt pressure tugging, the room spinning around me. Then silence. A terrible silence. My heart seized. I turned my head toward the doctors, my throat dry. Where's my baby? Why don't I hear crying? The staff exchanged worried looks. One nurse began rubbing a tiny, fragile body, trying to coax life into it. Another adjusted equipment, their movements frantic. And then finally, a cry. Then weak but real. My baby's cry. Tears burst from my eyes. Relief flooded me, overwhelming and fierce. Thank you, God. Thank you. But the relief lasted only a moment. The doctor's voice broke through, low and tense. The baby's alive, but barely. We have to take the child to the NICU immediately. The fight isn't over yet. I watched helplessly as they whisked my newborn away, the tiny wails fading down the hall. My arms ached to hold the child I had fought so hard for. But all I could do was lie there, trembling, praying. And then, just as exhaustion pulled at me, I heard a voice at the door. Congratulations, Mary. It said, dripping with venom. I turned my head, and my blood ran cold. Standing in the doorway, dressed in a stolen nurse's uniform, was Richard's closest friend, a man I had seen by his side many times before. And in his hands, he held a scalpel. Hello again, my dear viewers. Before I continue, please subscribe, like this video, and click the notification bell so you won't miss the rest of this story. And please tell me in the comments which part of the country you're watching from. It always warms my heart to see your messages. Now let's return to that terrifying moment. The man in the nurse's uniform stepped into the room slowly, the scalpel gleaming under the hospital light. His face was partially hidden under a surgical mask, but I knew him. I had seen him too many times before, always lurking behind Richard, his loyal shadow. My stomach turned. You! My voice cracked, weak from the operation. He pulled the mask down, revealing a cruel smirk. That's right, Mary. Richard may be gone, but his mission isn't. He made me promise that if he couldn't finish the job, I would. My heart pounded, my body trembling as I tried to sit up, but pain ripped through me from the surgery. I was too weak, too vulnerable. The man stepped closer, his voice low and mocking. Don't bother fighting. You can't even move. And your baby? That child doesn't belong in this world. Richard was right. Tears streamed down my cheeks. I pressed my hand against my belly, even though it was empty now, and whispered, "Please don't hurt my child." His smirk widened. It's already done. They told me the baby is weak, clinging to life. All I have to do is finish it. A quick slip in the NICU, and no one will ever know. Rage boiled inside me, burning hotter than my fear. I forced myself upright, pain screaming through my body. If you touch my baby, I swear, you'll regret it. The man chuckled darkly. And what will you do, Mary? You can't even stand. He raised the scalpel, holding it to my face. The blade gleamed dangerously close to my skin. Suddenly, the nurse who had helped me earlier burst back into the room, her eyes widening in horror. What are you doing here? She gasped. The man turned, snarling. Get out or you'll be next. But she didn't move. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady. Security is already on the way. You won't get away with this. His eyes narrowed. Then I'll make it quick. He lunged at her, the scalpel slashing through the air. She screamed, dodging just enough to avoid the blade. Summoning every ounce of strength left in me, I grabbed the four-stand beside my bed and swung it with all my might. The metal cracked against his back, and he stumbled forward, crashing into the nurse. The scalpel clattered to the floor. The nurse scrambled for it, but the man shoved her aside and turned on me, his face twisted with rage. You'll pay for that. I gasped for breath, clutching the four-stand again, though my arms shook violently. I knew I couldn't hold him off much longer. And then, just as he raised his fists, John's weak but furious voice rang out from the doorway. Get away from my wife. I turned in shock. John was standing there, fragile, swaying, leaning heavily on a crutch, but his eyes blazed with a strength I hadn't seen in weeks. And in his trembling hand was Richard's knife.